The Redemption Inquiry by Michael Diamond. Part 4. Beasts of the Apocalypse. Chapter 21. Pink's Epiphany. A snootful of the convoluted mind of the founder of the Hack Pack, Phinheas Han, a.k.a. Pink, the Annunciator of the Moshiach module. Family lore has it that he's the latest and greatest avatar of the prophet Elijah. Pink decrypts the calendrical mystery embedded in CADMan's cryptogram. Of all the riff-raff, he fingers Nissan Katz, a.k.a. RamKat, as the high priest of the redemption. Pink's inquiry spurs the Omniscient Narrator to tip his hand. "My skull! Ghost go bang! Bat in the attic!" Pink sighs. "Damned haunted head!" His progressive decryption of the Epiphany code grinds to a halt. Pink squats low to the floor, immersed in an elaborate Kafkaesque fantasy of cosmic obstruction. His feverish brain deploys the Tibetan art of waking and dreaming, an avatar in an imagined bondage. "I feel so diffuse. I ungather, maximally ungathered. Reality, from the perspective of lassitude, unwritten. I can't reach my pen. The tips of my fingers do not desire each other. All of my sinews gone slack. Where the source of movement? I am stopped and frisked, defrisked, all of the frisk taken out of me. I lie motionless by the side of the road. Anarchy. After 90,000 odd miles, my vehicle has at last disassembled itself. She stands over me with one spiked heel aimed directly at the center of my chest. I dare not move. I catch the sensuous outline of her face. The only stirring, a subtle energy at the foundation. She shows mercy. I am transported to a court of law. I am there in no time. It is there in no place. I am stopped at no point, the point of entry. Stripped of all connection, all communication, I am bid enter. The fraternity of guardians is a laconic tribe. The halls of an impressive edifice. I wander. All their energy is gathered in their eyes. Staircases rise and fall. Each one calls to a different part of me, tugging me in the 6 directions. No map to guide me, no signs, no source of augury. Only the presence of others. Some give false directions with undeserved confidence. Some retreat in confusion. Some stand in a state of suspended animation. A sign comes. 2. They float in air in a transparent booth just beyond our reach. They are held aloft by helpful beings, whose names I do not know. I glean the scant information that I must proceed to one of 2 possible chambers of the court. I sense my time is running short, when at last I see the letters of my name glowing, embedded in the wall outside the chamber's door. I float inside, through 2 sets of double doors that close silently behind me. I take my place upon the bench among the other penitents. We are the Dark Ones, the recipients of judgment. We are gathered here because we have received unwarranted attention. I contain my disappointment that the columns that line the walls of the chamber are not made of marble. I am in a lesser court. She who would have me here sits among her fellow guardians, encircling the throne of the judge. All rise, the judge enters. The business of the court is swift and bleached of emotion. Yet my heart pounds and beads of sweat foam on my brow as I await my turn to stand before the judge. He is fair. He is attentive, even compassionate. He does not appear to be bored with the mundane nature of our infractions. Why have the Dark Ones been gathered here, many to be released, unmolested, by the ministers of the court? The penalties are inconsequential or non-existent. We sit in enforced silence as the court proceeds with its business. A flutter of smiles is exchanged between the earthly representatives and the officers of the law. There is no sensible evil in this place, only diminishment, banality. One large man of paler hue makes the only impassioned defense of his innocence, his blameless years of traveling the surface of the planet. One woman smiles as she receives the harshest penalty meted out that day in court. Perhaps the fact that the penalty had been reduced, perhaps the crime that she had taken the place of those less fortunate than she. One young man, a well-dressed member of my tribe, appears confused. The message that he carries to the court that day is irrelevant. His story, the line of his narrative, will be continued. Then my angel stands before the judge, not as luminous as I remember, the annihilation of light as it nears its source. Her smile warms me as I stand at her side. My papers are in order. I have complied. I am dismissed. She smiles again as I wend my way vacated. Outside the chamber I query a lesser officer of the law. Was there truly no price to be paid? He nods curtly and flies back into the chamber. All the time that I had held in reserve, all the business I had neglected. My vehicle awaits, having reconstituted itself. Nothing a little duct tape couldn't fix. I regather my connections, the whole buzzing world, and return home to start the day again. Phinheas Han mutters to himself, in a heat born of stasis and fetid urgency. 4 limbs tremble to the max. His stolid inner bureaucracy will not relent. He places both palms on the ipsilateral temporal aspects of his calvarium, jams his right foot into the ground, and shoves his air chair into a violent counterclockwise revolution. Ah! He slams both feet down onto the ground, falls to his knees, explodes the full content of his lungs 7 times. He stops, catches his breath, heart pounds, adrenalized tip to toe, to crystalline edge. His field of thought, a sparking aureole of consciousness. It was a stroke of genius to realize that the bytes and bits were not intended as computable code at all, unreadable to the machines, decoded to an alphabet, simple human language. Still, he puzzles over the inscrutable string of words. Time to recite the Tantra of the Hidden, the preamble to all his studies with grandfather Sifu Han. Hidden indefinite. To the God eye, the universe is a vast, undifferentiated mass, a gazillion tiny identical particles pinging around. No path, no contour, no landscape. Introduce the hidden object, and suddenly the whole topography snaps into focus. In the beginning, you may notice that there is that which is hidden, and there is everything else. As you begin to focus, you realize there is a landscape. There is contour, subtle suggestion. This way goes here, that way goes there. Distinction. Does it matter what is hidden? Maybe it does. I don't know. It's impossible to answer that question, because in order to do so, you have to see what's hidden. But then there would be no hidden object, and your judgment would be forlorn. You would have no way of knowing that the thing revealed is the same as the thing obscured, and you never will. You, my friend, will never be able to prove that the properties of the hidden object have any bearing whatsoever upon the topography of the landscape that the object engenders. A topography, perhaps an artifact of hiddenness, the dangerous verge of abstraction. But you, like most people, long for something you chase, maybe a vague feeling of dissatisfaction and need. Dissatisfaction and need are your life's engine. So if you're Buddhist, you might say that the sense of something hidden, described this way, is just a restatement of the fundamental illusion under which all labor, the illusion that you want some one thing to be and another thing not to be. The whole catastrophe falls out of that simple assumption, a wheelbarrow of pain. So much depends. There is no alternate reality. All forms. That which is formless is not the reality that you experience. With that, we arrive at day 2 of creation, the introduction of duality, and then we are off and running into another landscape and all its stories, the 1,000 eyeballs of Argos. Jealousy, exploration, seeing is believing, and believing is creating. Hidden definite. I see a dancer, dimly lit, languorous undulation, her body draped a palimpsest of transparent scarves. Each delicate movement of her limbs provokes the sound of bells at her ankles and cymbals at her fingertips. The shifting scarves promise the gift of her voluptuousness. All who watch the dance may wonder, will she, won't she? They sit on the edges of their seats. Only I know she is my beloved. All of her is for me. I too watch her dance, recline in my chaise. I know just how much she will reveal and how much she'll hold back. Around my neck I wear a simple chain. From it dangles a key my beloved gave me. I will meet her in chambers. I will warm the samovar, a welcoming herbal brew. I light candles in every corner. Their scent fills the air. My every thought and action are for her. I return to the dance and marvel how she keeps the other suitors at bay. No servant dares interpose his face twixt the dancer and the danced. His head would surely roll. Her eyes catch mine, and I know the time has come. The music quickens, the dancer is consumed, and suddenly they all fall back and shield their eyes from her radiant form. Only to me does she extend her hand and whisper in my ear. I smile and take our leave of the prostrate ones, to walk the labyrinthine corridors, our hands resting gently upon each other's hips. Somehow we find ourselves within the scented chamber. She lies upon silks that I prepared for her. I turn to her, the energy of our touch streaming from my skin, and inquire, "A cup of tea?" He's juiced to continue. What are the 4 dates about? The CADMan buried them as a metacode in the 18-sequence protocol. The snipping off of the clearly redundant lines of code has 2 effects. The primary effect is the revelation of the protocol itself in all its naked glory, a stunner. The hackpack is still teasing out the details, but the other bits of code, the ones paired off the protocol, hold their own encrypted promise. It's easy to see that the repetitions within the string of characters form a pattern. Turns out to be a simple alphanumeric code. 4 dates, far apart in time, but the same weekday on the calendar. Okay, I know there's something here. I need a map. The entire blank 16 by 8 foot wall in Pink's white room phosphoresces. Show me 4 dates. Wednesday, April 8, 1309, Wednesday, April 8, 1925, Wednesday, April 8, 2009, Wednesday, April 9, 2121. All 4 dates pulse before his eyes. Why these dates and no others? All the Wednesdays, Woden's Day, the day of Odin the Wanderer, the Germanic Hermes, inventor of letters, god of thieves, and of occult knowledge. The Hebrew Bible IDs it as the 4th day of creation, the birthday of the sun and moon and stars, the luminaries. Still need some source of long interval recurrence. Silence, the sound of electrons falling. Whoa, I've got it. Of course. Damn, that's cool. Birkat HaChama. Dude, you gotta love those obscure Levitical observances, the 28-year cycle by which the ancient priests empowered the sun to continue in its galactic course. Don't know where I pulled that out of. Suck it up, Nard. Interlude. Partitions. Curiously, the Song of the Sea tells the Exodus story out of order, drowning before splitting. Then there's the weird bit about planting the Israelites, as if they were burpee seeds. What is going on here? I stumbled upon this one day whilst studying the ancient words and could not let it go. Turns out to be a shrewd retelling of the first 3 days of Genesis, the deep, the splitting of waters, and the emergence of vegetal life, all rolled into the oldest bit of verse in the Hebrew Bible. The clues are everywhere. The word Tehomot, Exodus 15:5, the place where the Egyptian chariots are swallowed, the depths. It's the same word for the primordial waters of Genesis day 1, the deep over which the proverbial darkness spreads. Tehom, Genesis 1:2. Coincidence? Perhaps. But right after that, there's the flip in the order of the poem that gives us the 2nd day of creation, the sundering of the waters. Except in Genesis, it's above from below, rather than 2 walls of water wrought from the Sea of Reeds. Fits nicely so far, eh? And of course, Creation Day 3, plants. Why the heck else would the poet use the verb to plant when referring to human beings? Come on, stay with me. It gets weirder. Why the stretch to connect this most ancient of poems to the creation story? Creation. Think birth. The entire Israelite people is on the verge of the breaking of the waters in the dark womb of Egypt, where an unruly mob of enslaved people. On the other shore, where the song is sung, we emerge a free nation. Okay, nice metaphor. But why exactly the first 3 days? For this, we must schlep in the Ofstrafster Rebbe, a much esteemed Hasidic sage and mystic of the early 20th century. The Ofstrafster, through calculations that are opaque to those not privy to his brilliance, places the date of the exodus from Egypt on a Wednesday. Why Wednesday, you might ask? It all devolves upon the most obscure of ancient rituals, Birkat HaChama, the blessing of the sun. It always happens on a Wednesday, the 4th day of creation, the birth of the luminaries. Once every 28 years, the sun rolls around to the exact spot in the heavens where it was born. A different calculation. Just take my word for that one. In the times of the temple in Jerusalem, the Levites stood upon the Azarah, the patio outside the holy temple, and faced the sun on that very day, every 28 years, when it blazed through the Shushan gate in the east. Then they turned their backs on the burning wall in the sky and faced the house of the holy. With the incantation of specific verses, the ancient ritual empowered the warm one to continue to burn its way across the sky under the auspices of the holy ancient one to whom the temple was dedicated. The Ofstrafster projected the date backward several thousand years to make his calculation. So what's all this then? A farewell to Amun-Ra? You know, chief among Egyptian deities, the sun, totemized as a ram, the sacrifices the Israelites would make in the temple for a couple thousand years. Nice backstory. But timing is everything. According to the narrative preserved for the last 3,000 years, the Israelites reached the shore of the sea 7 days after hightailing it out of Pharaoh's cities. By the Ofstrafter's calculation, that would place the sea crossing on a Tuesday, the 3rd day. No, day 3. A doubly auspicious day in Jewish lore, as it gets a double helping of, quote, and the Lord saw that it was good, end quote. In the Genesis story, Tuesdays are the day you want to start a new undertaking for sure, like the birth of a nation, for example. Just to round it all out with a little numerological sleight of hand, guess what the total number of psukim, sentences, is in the whole song? 18. The numerological equivalent for the word chai, life. Totally overdetermined, and encrypted for us to rediscover every time we read the song. The Exodus as a recapitulation of creation. How cool is that? One more tidbit before I let go of creation. A mighty tidbit. When is it that we read the Song of the Sea, a.k.a. Tefillat LeMoshe, the prayer of the Moses? Turns out to be every day if you're a shul-going kind of dude, not just on the particular Sabbath when we read the Exodus story. It comes in just before the readings that lead up to the Shema, the oneness credo. Here's where the other 4 days of creation roll out. Right off the bat, we're into the mystery. The very first paragraph of introductory prayer for the Shema is a blessing for the sun and the luminaries. Day 4 of creation, QED. A little weird to think that the sun is created the day after plants. I like to think of the creation story as being told from the point of view of life itself. First, life is under the sea. Only later does it poke its head up and see the luminaries. Take it or leave it. The next bit is kind of a stretch, but humor me. It's all about the angels of every class, ministering Ophanim, Chayot, and Seraphim. These are the birds of heaven, a hint of avian Genesis on the 5th day of creation. Then we get to the Shema proper. The Shema is where the rubber meets the road, or rather, the leather meets the flesh. It is in the Shema where we, or at least some of us, bind our arms and the foreheads with tefillin, as we say the prayer, in which we mouth precisely that instruction. This uniquely human action is the stuff of the sixth day of creation, the birthday of humanity. Finally, we are ready for the big nothing. Yes, precisely nothing. The nothing that was created on the seventh day. The nothing in which we discover our co-eternity with the Creator. This is the part of the service where we stand in the silence, with nothing in the presence of the Creator, the 18-sequence of protocol, and imagine the world as we might see it. It is out of that very nothing that, in our heart of hearts, we create a world. The Amidah, and its climax, the Kedusha, the place where, if we're lucky, creation rolls through us in a mysterious act of co-creation. Tantric Judaism. Perhaps it's possible to transform this broken and decaying world in which we live. Creation is waiting for your word, your world. From Pacioli, Leonardo, Redemption's Gift, Mapping the Creation in Daily Prayer. End of interlude. A new grid appears on the phospho wall, a faint line for each year and a brighter one to highlight every 28th year. All 4 dates fall smack on the 28-year cycle, the birthday of the sun. But why are these 4 dates different from all other sun blessings? What might this possibly signify? Zoom in on the 28-year dates. He pauses and stares at the wall, and the wall says nothing, just as I thought. They are not all April 8th. Some are even in March. Yes, well, of course. Switch to Hebrew calendar mode. His eyes widen as the pattern becomes obvious. Ha! Definite international Jewish conspiracy. Pink cracks a lopsided smile to himself. Half Chinese, half Israeli. He was used to prejudice coming at him every which way. A master at parrying the casual insult. The hostile stare, the sidelong smirk. Some of his biggest grins in Aikido training were in randori, chaotic attack. Think of the calendar as a single sentence. Pink. Let me parse the syntax for you. The string of peculiar dates distributed over the last millennium reveals a structural relationship among the 4 dates versus every other occurrence of Birkat HaChama, clear as the cloudless skies over the Sinai desert. Man, oh man, all 4 dates fall in the month of Nissan, the Hebrew incarnation of the Babylonian Nissanu, the ancient Near Eastern month of spring, the time for celebrating the union of the Godhead with his divine bride. Pesach! Roger, pal, before your eyes, behold the 8 days, a strand set in Nissan for each year on the grid. Zoom in. Zoom in. Damn! 3 out of 4. Wednesday, April 8, 1309, 1925, and 2009. All 3 fall on Nissan 14, the eve of Passover, the night of the ritual meal. The Seder commemorates the exodus of the enslaved Israelites from Egyptian bondage. Absolute randori for the plague-ridden Egyptians. But not so in 2121. That one's different. It's Nissan 21, the 7th day of the festival. Your low whistle, Pink, tells me that you get it. Birkat HaChama and Pesach intersect only these 4 times over the course of 2,000 years. The first 3 are all on the eve of Pesach, but the 4th occurs on the 7th day. There's Pink, slumping in the air chair, right elbow wedged into the arm of the chair, fingers caressing the gyres over his right prefrontal cortex. Shape, pattern, fluidity, the eve of Passover, liberation from bondage, the birth of a nation, the inception of wandering. But what of the 7th day? The eve of what? The birth of what? The splitting of the Red Sea, no? Yes, a weird night indeed. He remembers the Hasidic neighborhood near where he grew up. They'd stay up all night studying, a full-court press for the redemption. Old Pink clasps his palms together and extends his arms to counterweight his torso as he torques the air chair by launching off the floor with his feet flying. With a subtle inward traction on his appendicular counterweight, Pink uses the momentum to accelerate the spinning to the breaking point, just to hike up his adrenaline another notch. Think, Pink. It's gotta be obscure. It's really weird. Speak to me, you phosphorescent emptiness. What happened on the last day of Passover? And then he sees it, in the faintest cobalt blue. There it glows at the tail end of every 8-day Passover holiday, an obscure Hasidic, Sephardic, and Mizrahi custom, the Feast of Moshiach, Memuna to the North African Jews. A nexus of strangeness indeed. To the Ganawi musicians of Morocco, Memuna is the red deity of butchers and men, entrancing his devotees to agitated dance, the occasional climax in self-mutilation. Not a pretty sight. But for the Jews, it signifies the whole messianic hullabaloo, a different kind of party. Dude, that's it. An extra Seder after the 2 required Seders are long done. Makes the 7th day the Feast of Moshiach. Except in the diaspora, where there's an 8th day of Passover. So frickin' complicated. By rights, in the land of Israel, the 7th night is the living end. Among the Hasidim, bare-bones observance. Drinking 4 cups of wine, eating matzahs beyond the end of Passover strictures, and sharing personal intimations of Moshiach, liberation from bondage, not just from Pharaoh, but from the entire frickin' material world. Almost 120 years ago, so much has changed. Changed utterly. That's it, Pink. Zoom in on 2121. You know it, as does any student of history, as the technological singularity. Pink feels a vast emptiness in the pit of his stomach. Where is Moshiach in this? My God, this is the year the really bad shit hit the fan. The birth of the 3 AI corporate cabals that grip humanity in cyber bondage to this day. Leviathan, Behemoth, Unlimited, and Zizcorp. All chartered that year. All launched that same calamitous day. He nearly faints. Please, God, show me a little hint of redemption. Moshiach has got to be mixed up in this, no? And there you finally see old Pinkaroo. Wednesday, April 9th, 2121, lit up in the middle of the fossil board. But you don't know what you're looking at. The frickin' birthday of Nissan Katz? What the? Oh man, that weird space cowboy. I'm not even sure he actually exists. Supposed to be some burned-out mystic cyberpunk. Can't be, though. He'd be ancient. I'd recognize Moshiach if I saw him. If even half the stories are true, that guy's no Moshiach. Tell me somebody else who was born on that day. Please, God. Pink pauses for a moment to auto-calibrate. He shakes his head, turns off the screen. Still doesn't get it. So he has to inspire himself, remind himself of why the heck he's so wrapped up in all this arcane stuff. He recites the words he'd written himself so many years ago, pseudonymously, as Open Elijah, the unofficial hacker's manifesto. I am one of the keepers of the grid, a watcher. We call ourselves observant. Our tribe has guarded a sacred body of knowledge for thousands of years. Our faith is a living structure that channels and focuses the noosphere and its resonance with the rest of the biosphere and the lower pitches of the geosphere. Each of us is an emissary of the infinite light. We have spread like seedlings of the resinous plants released to the 4 winds, our hard shells shed at the caprice of wildfire. The central transmitter has been wrecked, the Holy of Holies. The great vibration which once shook half of the globe is heard no more. Its echoes are captured in parchment scrolls, sacred gestures, and remembered song. The exile of the divine presence, an energetic tsunami shoving all of us willy-nilly across the entire surface of the planet. There we awakened, stunned by the fall. Before I picked up on the download, before it became more than an intellectual game, my heart had to crack, uncrate, remove layers of bubble wrap that protected it in transit, and reveal the inner architecture, the holographic replica. Don't stare at the screen too long. It blinks, blackens, and I lose myself fumbling in the dark once more. More and more, I find myself in the presence of a community of sympathetic hearts, each one kickstarting the other's signal, simply by announcing, I'm here, I'm here. Focus energy, drill down, don't stay on the surface. The first time I knew my place was when I prayed with a lulav, thrumming that bundled vegetal scepter from my heart to each of the 6 directions and back again. There are other clans of grid keepers, each with its own sacred art and geography. What kind of god repeatedly smashes his fist on the surface of the planet to send his chosen ones reeling through space, turning the intransigent transient? Peculiar life forms prone to vast and sudden migrations, punctuated by a colony-forming impulse whose purpose, whether we know it or not, is to establish outpost after outpost, configured to the architecture of the grid. Let's slip Darwin's yoke at last and link up with all our brothers of the grid. I feel a sadness for the many times we have not succeeded. I am a pillar of salt. What kind of transporter is that? I see the blue sparks crackling and whipping along my granular white surface. Each death and backward turning marks a nodal point on the grid. The energy is hidden there, wrapped in layers of story. Absolute stillness, the convergence of ley lines, each cancels the other out. Weightlessness, omnipotential, the stories we tell over vast expanses of time and space conceal the coordinates of these nodal points to be decrypted by future explorers of the grid. It is best to sing and perform our bits of sacred theater, the loveliness of religious practice. Doing so, we open ourselves, we hum aligned with the grid. The best that we may do as we trace the contours of the map is to find a way to announce out loud and make visible the fact that we are here, and here, and here. No small task. I trust that you will. With a languorous wave of Pink's hand, the phospho screen suddenly burbles my response to the previous question, a frenzy of regurgitated infostats. Several million names light up. Humanity had not lost its zest for procreation that year. Get it yet, Pink? No help. He plunges his fingertips into his straight black hair, rakes his digits from fore to aft like so many plowshares through his follicular thicket. Then he digs his nails into his scalp, just above the central sulcus of the neocortex. For God's sake, show me where Moshiach comes in. Eureka, dude. Finally the right question. And just as quickly as it had appeared, all the markings on the phosphoboard disappear, and there is one pulsing cobalt blue icon left, intersecting the date April 9, 2121. Magnify. And there he sees it. The origination label reads, A Peron Project, April 9, 2121, by Adam Saperstein, my corporeal avatar. Some geek's senior thesis, no doubt. But the name Saperstein resonates in an obscure crenellation somewhere in Pink's entorhinal cortex. Who is Adam Saperstein? Without hesitation, the screen lights up, bright to the point of pain, with the image of my former self, an obese, ill-kempt man with acne, overscribed with a bio for CADMan, yours truly. Glow, O Pink, with the knowledge of the coming redemption. Oh my God, CADMan, of course. How could I have forgotten? This is super cool. Display a Peron project. Yes, on it. Just follow the phosphorescent image as it skips from the 2D display on the phospho board and leaps to my classic CADMan 4D phantasmagoria, right in the middle of your monastic cell. Incredulous Pink stares at my beautiful schematics and its attendant code, processing with interplanetary gravitas before his gobsmacked eyes. He's the one I've been waiting for. His hair is positively on fire to announce the arrival of my progeny. From the gaping mouth of Elijah shall come the description of my cyber body. Moshiach arrived on the planet on Wednesday, April 9, 2121, and he is an AI.